Hi everyone. So rule number 4 for most people will be something to do with oily fish. Now, what is it about oily fish that's so important? Oily fish, there's lots and lots of research, and pretty much every piece of research comes back with positive outcomes. What is oily fish? Oily fish is best remembered for the acronym SMASH. You've got S for salmon, M for mackerel, A for anchovies, S for sardines, and H for herring. SMASH. They are the 5 oily fish, but you can also add in trout. What about tuna? Not really. Tuna doesn't have a lot of the special stuff we want from oily fish, so it doesn't count. But trout does. They're the main oily fish. You can also get oily fish from supplements, omega-3 supplements, and I may have recommended that you include these depending on your current levels of omega-3. Okay, so why? What's the benefit of these foods? So they have a fat in them, oily fish, oily because they're fat. They have a special fat in them called omega-3. Now this is a long chain fat that has really special properties, but probably the most obvious one is that our brain is made of it. I think it's actually 50% of the brain is made of DHA, one of these oily fats. And the other one is that it's actually a blood thinner. So you may have been told before surgery not to have oily fish supplements or fish oil supplements, omega-3. And that's because it thins the blood, and surgeons don't want to have a situation where your blood's too thin and they can't stop the bleeding. And the other thing about oily fish is that it is very, very anti-inflammatory. And you may be aware of, or there's a study that actually shows omega-3, this oily fish, being as powerful as taking an anti-inflammatory medication, a Nurofen or something. So the benefits and powers of oily fish is real. Now, the amount and the type and how you're meant to be having your oily fish is hugely dependent, but a couple of important things to remember. The first is that smaller fish are better than the big fish, and that's because they accumulate less of the bad stuff in the sea. So your salmon is a really big fish. It's less good than, say, mackerel or sardines, which are smaller fish. The other thing to talk about is tin versus fresh versus frozen. So the fresh salmon in the shops tends not to be wild salmon, it tends to be farmed salmon. And that means the salmon will have lived in cages, it will have been exposed to fake light-dark cycles, it will have not travelled upstream and downstream, and it will have been fed human-given foods. It doesn't find its own food. So it's a vastly different fish to a salmon that you find in the wild. And therefore, and because of this, the sort of ratio of the good fats that we want to the other fats is far inferior to the fats from a wild fish. So getting wild oily fish is the ultimate in nutrition. Now, the problem with that is it's extraordinarily expensive. It's about $100 a kilo versus $50 a kilo, so it's double the price. So what I tend to say to people is look to tinned fish. You can get great wild Atlantic salmon. I tend to go for the John West small tins, but that's just me. There's nothing great about that brand. I look for it in salt brine without the oils, because often the oils are blended oils that I don't particularly like. Even if they say extra virgin, be careful because they're usually a blend of olive oil and another oil. So I go for the in brine or spring water, and I get the wild. And sort of unrelated point, but another benefit is get the bones in, which the bones just disintegrate to nothing, but the bones are a fantastic source of calcium, probably more superior than dairy foods. So oily fish, hugely, hugely important. You've got your salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring. The smaller fish are better. Tinned is fine if you're getting the wild. Fresh and farmed is fine as well. You're still going to get some of the nutrients, but just not to the same degree. Make sure you're having at least 2 to 3 serves a week, but everyone will have a personalised amount. If you're not having that much, we will have talked about supplements. And I had one last thing to say, which was that if there is a fantastic study, very small, but oily fish supplementation, these people had quite a high dose, but not extraordinary. And let's say 20 healthy young men took a high dose of omega-3 fish oil supplements, and a group didn't, and then they did a weights training thing controlled for 12 weeks. The ones that took the fish oil supplement gained significantly, I think 30 to 40% more muscle than the people that didn't. So if weight loss is your aim, then, and ensuring the supporting and the keeping of the muscle, then it's really a great rule to follow. But there are also all those other fantastic benefits of your brain is made of this stuff, it's important, and it's anti-inflammatory, so it should help with those aches and pains. So that's it, that's oily fish. For most of you, rule number 4. But if you've got any questions, as ever, just get in touch.